Hello and welcome. I'm Dame Offensive. We're going to be doing another Civ leader rating today. Today's leader is Kublai Khan, who leads both China and Mongolia. His ability is Gerege, which grants an additional economic policy slot in all governments, and he gains a random Eureka and Inspiration when a trading post is established in a major Civ for the first time. China's ability is Dynastic Cycle. Eurekas and Inspirations provide an extra 10% of the science and culture cost. Mongolia's ability is Urtu. Sending a trade route immediately creates a trading post. It grants extra diplomatic visibility with a trading post, and you get bonus combat strength for each level of diplomatic visibility. The ratings I use are fairly simple. 10 is the best, 1 is very bad, 5 or 6 is about average. First up for rating is the science victory. In terms of science generation, he's going to get a 7 under both civs. He doesn't really have a great bonus towards science generation, but the extra economic policy slot means that you have some room to stick the policy cards in that will help you. For production generation, under both civs, he's going to get a 7 here too, for the same reason. He doesn't get any special bonuses towards production, but that extra policy slot means that he's better able to keep production and science policy cards in the slots. And finally, his special abilities towards science. Under both civs, again, I'm going to give him a 7. The Eurekas aren't particularly strong, but when you game them, it can really help that end game where things stagnate a little bit. Average those all out, and Kublai Khan, under either civ, gets a 7 for scientific victory capacity. On to culture. Here we're going to see some variability. Under China, for culture generation, Kublai Khan gets an 8, and that's because the unique improvement for China does generate culture. Under Mongolia, he gets a 6. There's nothing particularly special about his culture generation, but he does get that slightly above average because of the extra economic policy slot, which can help fit more policy cards that help you out. In terms of faith generation, under both civilizations, he's gonna get a 6. He doesn't have any special abilities towards faith generation, but again, that economic policy slot can help boost him a little bit. In terms of special abilities towards culture victory, under China, he gets an 8. The unique improvement can really help boost a culture victory, and his bonuses help him just enough to push him in a culture direction there. Under Mongolia, he gets a 6. Again, he just needs those economic policy slots to help push him over the edge, but he doesn't really have anything particularly special when he's leading Mongolia towards a culture victory. Average out the scores for China, and Kublai Khan gets a culture victory capacity score of 7.3. When you average these out for Mongolia, Kublai Khan gets a 6. Now for religion. In terms of establishing a religion for both Mongolia and China, he's going to get a 6. And that's just because, again, of that economic policy slot, which can help generate some more faith, and the fact that he has a better chance of getting the Eureka up to unlock holy sites if necessary. In terms of faith generation, he gets a 6. We talked about that already in the culture section. In terms of additional abilities towards a religious victory, under China, he gets an 8. And that's just because those extra Eurekas and Inspirations can help get you to the right policy cards that will help your victory condition, as well as the extra economic policy slot. Under Mongolia, I think here he gets a 10, and that's because you're going to maintain that high diplomatic visibility and have very strong religious units. So you can play a peaceful Mongolia game, but a very violent religious battlefield. Average the scores out for China, and he gets a 6.7. Average those scores out for Mongolia, and he gets a 7.3. On to diplomatic victory. Kublai Khan gets the same scores as China or Mongolia here. He's going to get a 7, and that's because his diplomatic favor generation is not super special, but his extra economic policy slot allows him a wildcard slot to go to a diplomatic policy card. In terms of culture generation, we talked about that earlier. For China, he's going to get an 8. For Mongolia, he's going to get a 6. In terms of special abilities towards diplomatic victory, for both China and Mongolia, he's going to get a 7. Again, that extra economic policy slot allows for more diplomacy cards to be slotted in, and it just generally allows for more focus on things that are required for the diplomacy. He's also going to focus on a lot of trade routes, which means good money generation, and he's going to have to be friendly with his neighbors, which is good for diplomatic victory. Average his scores together for China, and he gets a diplomatic victory capacity of 7.3. Average his scores for Mongolia, and he gets a score of 6.7. On to domination. When leading China, Kublai Khan gets a 6 in terms of combat power. And that's because China doesn't really have any special abilities towards combat in terms of units or anything. And the Chinese unique unit isn't particularly useful. For Mongolia here, he gets a 10. The combat bonuses for having extra diplomatic visibility and getting that extra visibility when you establish a trade route is so good. Next up is unit relevance. Here, as China, he's going to get a 6. There's nothing really special about his units or the timing of them, so he's pretty average here. For Mongolia, he's going to get a 9. And that's because horses are always valuable. They're so fast and they can move along those trade roads very quickly, so they can get to your enemies so much faster. And their extra combat strength means that they will be effective longer. Last is special abilities towards domination. For China, he gets a 7 here. That economic policy slot can help increase the policy slots available in the military cards, but that's about the only specialty he gets there. For Mongolia, he's going to get a 10, and that's because he can get that quick bonus to research and culture from establishing his trade route from Gerege, and then he can launch an attack very quickly. He's just super powerful in domination as Mongolia. Average his scores out as China, and he gets a domination victory capacity of 6.3. For Mongolia, he gets a 9.7, which is his best victory condition as Mongolia. Now let's talk about versatility. This is about how effective he's going to be across different spectrums. The first measurement here is an average of his other scores. Here, as China, he's going to get a 7, and as Mongolia, he's going to get a 7.3. The next measurement is reasonable alternatives, and here I mean how capable he is of switching between any of the victories. And as China, I think he gets a 9. He is just a very good base, and his bonuses can help a little bit in any direction, so he has a lot of alternatives. As Mongolia, he's going to get a 6. He still gets good bonuses to other victory types, but he's clearly so driven towards domination as Mongolia that I think it holds him back a little bit in that regard. The last versatility measurement is ease of change. How able is he to change partway through a campaign if you've already committed to one victory type for a while? As China, I think he's going to get an 8. He's very strong at switching, and a lot of his bonuses affect both culture and science, about the same way, so it shouldn't be too much of a challenge to switch from one side or the other, really. As Mongolia, he's going to get a 7. He still gets a fair few bonuses to even development of science and culture, but he's still so focused on domination that if you've headed that way and then you find yourself up against a very good enemy like Vietnam, it might be hard to pivot from there. So average his versatility scores out, and as China, he gets an 8. As Mongolia, he gets a 6.7. Some additional thoughts on Kublai Khan. In terms of terrain, I don't think China has a very special spawn zone, so he's not really going to get any special terrain bonuses, and he's going to have to look at what's out there. You can't really depend on him having decent production or anything, which could be a challenge. With game modes, I think he's going to work really well with Owls of Minerva. That would really pump up his diplomatic victory potential because of his want for trade routes and the Owls of Minerva bonuses, which give him yet another economic policy slot. It means that he's going to have no trouble fitting in all of those key policy cards. So you're almost always going to want secret societies with him. City-state interactions. I think it's going to be really important for him to have a lot of city-state neighbors, especially early game, for maintaining trade routes, because one of the strategies with Kublai Khan is going to be to establish trade routes with other civs later in the game to get better value out of Gerege's inspirations and Eureka's. In terms of wonders, I think that's going to depend a lot on the civ you're leading with Kublai Khan. You probably do want to make sure that you can get the Colossus for the extra trade route capacity, but I'm not sure about anything else jumping out at me in terms of how he plays. Anything that opens up policy card slots is probably really strong on him, so that you just never worry about policy cards and can pump everything. That's going to get you closer to the victory condition you're looking at. Other civs to consider. As China, I think he's so well-rounded that you don't specifically have to worry about any other civs. But as Mongolia, since he's so geared towards domination, I think you will have to be a little bit concerned about very defensive civs like the new Vietnam. And because he doesn't get any particular science bonuses, probably some of the higher science civs will be an issue to go up against, unless you can just go really fast and maximize your diplomatic visibility. Other notes. I think Kublai Khan is fairly strong and very well-rounded, especially when leading China. I think he opens up a lot of interesting gameplay opportunities because he's not pointed in any direction as China. And he does have a lot of flexibility as Mongolia as well, but you definitely are geared a little bit more towards domination. I think that trying a religious victory as Kublai Khan leading Mongolia would be an interesting thing to try for the combat bonuses. That's been my leader rating of Kublai Khan, who leads either China or Mongolia. If you like this and you want to see more ratings, go ahead and subscribe. You know how YouTube works. Goodbye.